Staff Sergeant Malik Johnson landed at the airport in full military uniform, 10 years of service, 3 tours overseas. But within minutes, 2 white officers grabbed him, accused him of impersonating a soldier, and slammed him into a wall. They never checked his ID, never asked a single question, just saw a black man and made a snap judgment. But what they didn't know was who he really was and who was about to walk in behind him. What happens when racist cops arrest the wrong soldier? If you believe justice should never depend on skin color like this, video share it and subscribe. Now here's exactly what happened. You ever see something unfold so wrong, so slow that it makes your stomach twist like your body knows before your brain can catch up? That's what it felt like the moment Staff Sergeant Malik Johnson stepped off that plane. He walked into Atlanta International in full uniform, army blues, crisp nameplate, shining boots, clicking with quiet authority. He didn't walk fast, didn't look around for attention. He just existed. And somehow that was too much. A black man in a military uniform, alone. He wasn't even out of the arrival gate when people started shifting. A white woman near the coffee kiosk clutched her purse tighter and steered her son behind her like Malik was radioactive. Her eyes narrowed, her grip tight. The little boy peeked out from behind her coat and looked at Malik with wide, curious eyes. But she pulled him back, whispering something I couldn't hear. I didn't need to. Malik didn't flinch. He'd been here before. Not this airport maybe, but this feeling. The one where your country forgets what you've done for it because of how you look. He adjusted the strap on his duffel and kept walking. Calm, steady, controlled. But I saw it. That brief glance to his left, then right. Like a soldier walking into a combat zone he hadn't been briefed on. He was headed to baggage claim. Simple plan, grab his gear, hop a cab, knock on his mama's door and make her day. She thought he was still overseas. This was supposed to be a surprise. Instead, it was the beginning of something ugly. By the checkpoint, 2 airport cops had already clocked him. Officer Ryan Cole was built like a bulldozer, buzz-cut, flushed-face hands resting a little too eagerly on his duty belt. His partner, Brett Hawkins, was thinner but sharp-eyed, the kind that scans a man like he's inventory. Neither looked friendly. They weren't watching a soldier. They were watching a problem. Malik's eyes flicked toward them once. No fear, no panic. But there was calculation. He reached into his jacket, took out his phone, and typed with his thumb like muscle memory. Quick, quiet. He didn't call anyone. He didn't even raise it to his ear. He just hit send. Later, we found out it was a message to his former commander. 2 words and a location pin. Eyes open. That's how fast soldiers think when danger walks up without warning. As he turned back toward baggage claim, the room seemed to lean in with him. The light changed. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe that was just my gut reacting before my mind could. Then I heard it. Hey, you. The kind of voice that wasn't asking, it was accusing. Malik stopped. Slowly he turned. Hands visible. Stance neutral. Just like he'd been trained. Officer Cole was already approaching, boots heavy on tile. Hawkins followed half a step behind, jaw tight. Where you headed, soldier? Cole asked, but his tone said he didn't believe the word. Baggage claim, Malik answered. Calm, clear. Just landed from overseas. You got ID on you. Malik nodded, reaching slowly toward his chest pocket. Military ID, driver's license, orders, whatever you need. Cole didn't even glance at the ID. That's a nice uniform, he said instead. Too nice. Malik's eyebrows lifted slightly. Excuse me? We got a report, Hawkins cut in. Black male impersonating military. You match. Malik blinked. I match. A description that vague. Cole stepped in closer, voice lower. You're saying you're real, huh? Malik didn't step back. I don't have to say it. I've got 10 years and a blood-stained deployment record that already did. You're awfully confident, Hawkins said. I've earned the right to be. A few heads started turning. A woman with a stroller paused mid-stride. A man by the vending machines pulled out his phone. The room wasn't loud, but it was listening. Malik's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. You want to verify who I am, he said. Call Fort Bragg. They'll confirm it in 2 minutes. Cole smirked. Or, we just check your bag right now. You need probable cause. You look like cuz to me. That's when Malik's posture shifted. Still calm, but firmer. Grounded. He wasn't just being questioned. He was being profiled. And he knew it. You're not searching anything, he said, voice steady. Not without a warrant or a damn good reason. Cole stepped even closer, his voice almost gleeful now. How about resisting arrest? And right then, right there in the middle of the terminal, I swear time slowed. The silence screamed louder than any siren. Malik didn't flinch, but in that pause you could feel it. This wasn't just about a bag. This was about who they thought he was, and who they were about to find out he really was. Cole didn't blink. He looked Malik up and down like he was studying a mannequin at a pawn shop. Not a man, not a soldier, just a question mark wrapped in dark skin and a pressed uniform. Where'd you get the uniform? Cole asked. Not sir, not sergeant, not even a fake thank you for your service. Just straight suspicion. Sharp, bare, like a blade to the chest. Malik took a slow breath. You could see his jaw flex just for a second, but his voice still steady. I earned it, he said. I'm Staff Sergeant Malik Johnson, you can verify that. Cole snorted. Oh, I'm sure you've got a whole story lined up. That's when Hawkins chimed in holding something in his palm. His phone, maybe. His tone was cold, clinical. We received a report. Black male impersonating military. That's why we're here. You match the description. Malik tilted his head just slightly. And that description is... What exactly? Tall, black, military uniform, Hawkins replied like that was enough. Malik stared at them for a beat, his eyes narrowing not in fear but in disbelief. You've got radios, he said quietly. You can call Fort Bragg right now. Give them my name. They'll confirm who I am before you finish your coffee. Neither of them moved. They didn't reach for the radio. Didn't pick up their phones. They just kept closing the gap like they had already made up their minds. Cole took a step closer. We're gonna need to search your bag. Malik looked down at his duffel, then back up. On what grounds? Suspicious behavior. I walked through the airport. You were looking around too much. I was looking for baggage claim. Hawkins shifted his stance. You refuse to answer questions. I've answered everything you've asked. Cole's hand moved toward Malik's duffel. Malik gently stepped back, still calm but firm. No. Not without a warrant, not without cause. Cole's voice dropped. You resisting, Sergeant? Malik's jaw tightened. I'm standing my ground. By now, the terminal was no longer just background noise. People were watching. Not a crowd. Not yet. But enough eyes to shift the atmosphere. A man leaned out from behind a newsstand. A teenage girl holding a suitcase started recording on her phone slowly, quietly. The tension wasn't loud, it was thick. Like the air itself had weight. Malik kept his posture tight. Trained. Hands visible. No sudden moves. But there was something different now in his eyes, less confusion, more calculation. He knew how fast things could go sideways. He'd seen it. Overseas. On home soil. Didn't matter. Same playbook, different uniforms. You want to confirm who I am? He said again, quieter this time. Then do it. Call the base, I'll wait. Cole didn't like that. You could tell. You think you can talk down to us? He hissed. I think I have rights. Hawkins took a step forward now, trying to control the narrative. Look, either you cooperate or we bring you in. That's simple. Malik glanced at the growing circle of onlookers, then back at the officers. If I was white, he said, would we even be having this conversation? That question didn't need an answer, because everyone already knew it. Cole's mouth twisted like he wanted to say something smart, something cutting, but nothing came out. Instead, he reached again. That's when Malik did something subtle but sharp. He slid his right foot back half an inch. Just a shift in stance. Just enough to ground himself. He didn't raise his voice, didn't ball a fist. But every inch of him said, I'm done being disrespected. Still, he gave them one last chance. You don't want to escalate this, he said, level and clear. Not with who's watching. Not with what you don't know. Cole sneered. Oh yeah, and what don't we know? Malik didn't answer. He just held the officer's gaze. And suddenly, for the first time in that entire encounter, Cole looked uncertain. Just for a second. Because somewhere deep inside, something told him they had messed with the wrong man. You could feel it shift. Whatever quiet control the officers thought they had, it started slipping. The second Lena Carter lifted her phone. She looked like she could be your high school English teacher. Late 40s. Neat afro. Sharp eyes behind reading glasses. Calm voice, but the kind that made you listen. She didn't shout, didn't throw her hands up. She just held up her phone and pressed record. They're arresting a black soldier at ATL, in uniform, for nothing. The world needs to see this. And suddenly it wasn't just an airport incident anymore. It was national. People around them noticed. One man lowered his newspaper. A woman stopped rolling her suitcase. Eyes turned. And then the whispers started. Is he military? That uniform's real. What did he do? But those whispers got louder when another voice broke through. Mr. LeVar Davis, a Vietnam vet, walking slow with a cane. Cap tilted low with 82nd Airborne stitched in threadbare red. Wrinkles deep, but pride deeper. He stepped forward like he still had rank, and pointed. That man ain't no faker, he said, voice steady. He's wearing that uniform, right? Combat patch, service stripes, name tag, it's all proper. And the way he stands, that ain't pretend. Cole barely turned. Sir, back up. This doesn't concern you. LeVar squared his shoulders. When you disrespect a man who's served especially a black man in this country, it concerns all of us. Malik hadn't said much. Still calm, but his jaw tightened. His voice, when it came, was low and measured. You want proof, call my CO. Fort Bragg. 30 seconds. He turned to Hawkins. You got radios. Use them. But Hawkins just stared. Didn't move. Didn't speak. And that silence said everything. Then Cole stepped forward again, reaching for his cuffs. Hands behind your back. The air stiffened. You could feel it freeze. Lena's voice snapped through the quiet. You're really cuffing a decorated soldier in front of all these people while live streaming. More phones came out, like ripples in water. Screens glowed, cameras focused, and the story spread. And then, a sound. Small, soft, but sharper than anything else. A little girl crying. She was maybe 6, holding her mother's hand, clutching a teddy bear. Her voice cracked as she looked at Malik. Mommy, he didn't do anything. That did it. Cole grabbed Malik's arm. Malik didn't flinch, didn't fight, just let out a breath controlled deep like a soldier trained not to react. He was shoved against the wall, hard. The bang echoed down the concourse. A woman gasped. A TSA agent froze mid-swipe. Then came the click. Cuffs locked tight. Malik stood tall, though, shoulders back, chin up, not defiant, not broken, just composed. The kind of stillness you earn in war zones. The kind of restraint you carry when you know who you are. But behind that calm, Malik moved barely. He leaned his head-mouth near the tiny mic stitched inside his collar. Command, ATL terminal, need help now. 6 words, soft, but seismic. You could almost see it in his eyes, the shift. Like he'd just played a card they didn't know he held. Cole didn't hear it. Neither did Hawkins. They were too busy dragging him away, barking at people to back off. But the crowd didn't move. A middle-aged woman shouted, You're making a mistake. A young man stepped forward, phone up, voice sharp. That's assault. He's military. You just put your hands on a staff sergeant on camera. Lena didn't stop filming. In fact, she stepped closer. They're still not calling Fort Bragg. They're just cuffing him like he's nobody. One man turned to a stranger. Are we gonna let this happen? The stranger answered, Not today. But Malik didn't react to any of it. Even as they dragged him past the food court, past the security checkpoint, past the people staring. He didn't yell, didn't explain, didn't plead, because his mind wasn't on the cuffs anymore. It was on the call he'd just made, and the man on the other end was about to change everything. For a moment, all you could hear was the squeak of Malik's boots on the airport floor echoing under fluorescent lights as the 2 officers dragged him away. Then chaos, voices rising, phones still recording, a TSA agent arguing with a gate clerk, an older black man yelling, You'll regret this. And just as things seemed on the brink of boiling over, he arrived. From the east corridor, cutting through the crowd with military precision, came a tall black man in dress uniform. Captain Lionel Brooks. The bars on his shoulders gleamed. His presence undeniable. He moved fast, eyes locked, back straight, hat still in hand. People naturally stepped aside. Something in their gut told them this man was authority. He didn't shout when he first saw them. He commanded, Unhand that soldier. It wasn't loud, but the sound of it stopped everything. The officers froze. Malik turned his head slightly, recognizing the voice, and the crowd, dead silent. You could have heard a suitcase zipper. Brooks stepped closer, voice low but sharp. Sergeant Malik Johnson. Status. Malik didn't flinch, didn't dramatize. Detained, no charges filed, just judgment. That line hung in the air, just judgment. Brooks clenched his jaw, then turned slowly toward the 2 officers. Name and badge number. Neither of them spoke. I won't ask again. Cole stuttered, Officer Cole. Badge 8174. Hawkins followed, barely audible. Brooks nodded once, then signaled toward the TSA desk where a young female clerk had been watching in shock. "Ma'am, run Staff Sergeant Malik Johnson's credentials. Fort Bragg. Immediate clearance check. Use military channels." She blinked. "Yes, sir." In less than 30 seconds, a printer whirred. She walked over, pale. "Active duty, 10 years. Fort Bragg. Clearance level 3. 3 tours overseas. Staff Sergeant. Awarded the Bronze Star." Gasps followed. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Bronze Star." Another said, "Oh my God, he's a real hero." But Brooks didn't break his stare. He turned slowly back to Cole and Hawkins. "You saw a black man in uniform, and instead of respect, you assumed criminal. You didn't see a threat. You saw his skin." Neither officer spoke. Their hands twitched, their faces drained. "You had military radios in the terminal." Brooks continued. "You had protocol. But instead, you escalated, on camera, with civilians watching." Then he looked at Malik still in cuffs. Brooks stepped forward, unclipped the cuffs himself. Click, click. Malik exhaled, rubbed his wrists gently, and looked Brooks in the eye. No drama, no pride, just dignity. "Appreciate it, sir." Brooks didn't nod, didn't smile. He just said, "You did the right thing calling in." And then, Lena, still holding her phone, still streaming. She leaned toward Mr. LeVar, who stood with arms crossed, eyes wet with emotion. "That's who they report to," she whispered. LeVar said nothing, but his eyes said everything. A woman nearby mumbled, "This is what justice looks like." But it wasn't over. Brooks turned back to Cole and Hawkins. "You'll both be placed under internal review, effective immediately. I've already notified the JAG office," JAG Hawkins said weakly. "You're being investigated by the Military Legal Corps for unlawful detention and racial profiling on federal property." Now it was Hawkins who looked pale. Cole just looked broken. Then from the side, a voice called out, "What about the apology?" It came from a woman in her 60s, black with silver braids and fire in her eyes. "You humiliated him in front of us. You dragged a soldier like he was a thief. Say something." The crowd murmured in agreement. Brooks didn't push them. He just stepped back and let the silence press. But Cole didn't speak. Not yet. Hawkins swallowed hard, looked at Malik. I didn't mean for it to go that way." Malik looked him straight in the eye. "You meant to cuff me without proof. That's all that matters." And then he turned away. No more words, no shouting. Just walked back into the center of the crowd free, and the crowd parted for him. Not because he asked, but because respect demanded it. Lena kept the live stream rolling, and by the time Captain Brooks escorted Malik out of the terminal, the views had already crossed 50,000, and rising. The public saw the cameras. The moment justice stepped into the terminal. But what they didn't see was what happened next. Inside a quiet, windowless security office tucked behind Terminal B, the tension hadn't gone anywhere. It had only changed rooms. Captain Brooks stood near the doorway, arms folded, not saying a word yet. Cole and Hawkins sat side by side across from Malik, who now sat calmly in the center of the room. His uniform still perfectly neat, his spine still straight, but his eyes burned. On the wall screen, Lena's live stream was paused mid-frame. Malik in cuffs, a crying child, and a caption that read, "This is America, 2025. Brooks finally spoke. "You see that? That's not a misunderstanding. That's a headline." Hawkins cleared his throat, trying to keep his voice steady. "We followed procedure." Brooks cut in sharply. "No. You followed prejudice. Don't confuse the two." There was a long silence. No one moved. Cole didn't even blink. His jaw was locked, but his hands trembled just slightly. Brooks stepped forward, remote in hand, clicking through more video stills. One showed Malik clearly offering to call his commander. Another showed Hawkins reaching for his cuffs before even questioning. "You didn't ask, you assumed." Hawkins looked down. "We had a call-in report. A man impersonating, and when did uniforms stop meaning something to you?" Brooks snapped. "Or is it just when they're worn by people who look like him?" No answer. "Because if you thought for 1 second, 1 single second that he was real, you would have radioed Fort Bragg. But you didn't. Because you didn't want confirmation. You wanted control." Cole exhaled, finally muttering, "We were trying to keep things under control." Malik spoke for the first time. Under control. His voice was calm, too calm. "You cuffed me, in front of a dozen kids, for wearing the uniform I earned. For serving a country that still lets men like you treat men like me, like threats." He paused. The weight of the room shifted. If that woman hadn't filmed, if there were no camera, would I still be sitting here in cuffs right now? Silence. Cole looked at the table. Hawkins stared at the floor. Neither could answer. Because deep down, they both knew the truth. Brooks broke the silence. Effective immediately, both of you are suspended from duty. Full internal review pending. Captain Hawkins began. Save it. He turned to Malik, tone softer now. You want to press formal charges, Sergeant Johnson? Malik looked down at his hands, then at the paused video, then at the two men who'd dragged him through hell without blinking. No, he said. Everyone looked up. Let the world see it. That's the real punishment. They're not afraid of justice. They're afraid of truth going viral. Brooks gave a slow nod. Understood. Malik stood, straightened his sleeves, adjusted his collar. He wasn't broken. He wasn't even angry anymore. He was done. As he reached for the door, he stopped just once and said without turning back, Be grateful I had my badge that day. Not every black man gets to wear one before he's believed. And then he left. No slamming doors, no raised voices. Just the echo of boots on linoleum, and a silence that would haunt the two officers longer than any suspension ever could. Malik sat in the back seat of the black SUV, staring out the window, not really seeing anything. His cuffs were gone, but their impression still lingered on his skin and deeper than that in his spirit. The ride home was silent except for the occasional crackle of the police radio, which he deliberately ignored. The moment the car stopped in front of his childhood home in East Atlanta, he hesitated. The porch light was still on. His mother never went to bed when he traveled. As he stepped out, his boots made a heavy thud against the gravel. Angela Johnson opened the door before he even reached the steps. Her eyes were wide, then narrowed, locking onto the faint red marks circling his wrists. Oh, Malik, she whispered, stepping forward. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. She wrapped her arms around him, pulling him into a hug that was less about comfort and more about holding him together. I saw the video, she said softly. Baby, come inside. He followed her in silent moving like someone wading through water. The warmth of the house clashed against the cold he carried. At the kitchen table, Malik finally spoke. His voice was low, scraped raw. I don't think I can wear that uniform again, Mama. Angela froze. Her hands mid-reach for the kettle trembled. She slowly turned to face him. They didn't just strip my rights today, Malik continued. They stripped my dignity, in front of children, in front of my people. Angela pulled out the old wooden box from the cabinet, the one no one was ever allowed to touch. It was worn, its corners faded from years of being moved, hidden, preserved. She opened it carefully and pulled out a folded letter. The edges were yellowed, but the handwriting inside remained firm. Your father wrote this the week before he passed, she said. He never got to give it to you. Malik hesitated, then unfolded the paper. Son, they may never salute you the way you deserve. They may never see you beyond your skin. But you wear that uniform not for them, but for those who will come after you. You are the mirror they refuse to face. So don't take it off. Make them see it. Make them see you. Dad. Malik read the letter twice, then again. His vision blurred. He hadn't cried overseas, not even when he'd lost friends, not when he'd been shot at or left bleeding in the dust. But now, here in his mother's kitchen, with that letter in his hand, the tears finally came. Angela sat down beside him and placed a hand over his. Your father was accused of stealing from his own base once, only because he was the only black man in the room. They found the truth later, but that didn't erase the pain. I feel like I lost something today, Malik whispered. You didn't lose anything, she said, her voice steady. They did. They lost a chance to recognize honor. You gave them that chance and they looked away. Malik leaned back in his chair, the letter clutched in his hand. Why does this keep happening? We fight their wars, build their cities, protect their streets, and they still see us as threats. Angela sighed. Because they haven't healed, baby, and we haven't stopped shining. For a long moment, there was only the hum of the refrigerator. Then Malik stood, walked to the hallway closet, and opened it. His uniform hung there, creased, dignified, untouched. He ran his fingers along the collar. Then, with quiet resolve, he pulled it out and laid it across the couch. Angela watched him, tears in her eyes, but pride swelling in her chest. You're putting it back on, she asked. Not yet, he replied. But I'm not burning it either. Angela smiled faintly. Sometimes. That's how light gets in. He looked at her, the weight in his chest easing just a little. I need to make a few calls. They're not getting away with this. She nodded. And you won't be alone in this. Not anymore. Just then his phone buzzed. A new message from Captain Brooks Media requests pouring in. Want to talk? Malik looked up, a flicker of something fierce returning to his gaze. Not yet, he whispered, but soon. On my terms. Outside, the sky was still dark, but inside something was beginning to rise. Hope. The morning after felt different. It wasn't the same kind of silence Malik had carried home. This one hummed, moved, vibrated through the floorboards and phone lines. He woke to the sound of his phone buzzing off the nightstand. He had 74 new messages. His inbox was flooded. His name was trending. The video Lena Carter had taken, the one showing him being cuffed at the airport in full military uniform, had gone viral. Over 7.4 million views overnight on X, formerly Twitter. But it wasn't just the numbers. It was the voice behind it. Her caption simply read, "He wore it right." And they couldn't stand it. Hashtag he wore it right. Within hours, veterans began responding. First, a quiet video from an older black Marine. "I wore that same uniform in '92, and I was questioned outside a grocery store. Nothing's changed. But maybe now, someone will listen." Then another from a white Navy vet, clearly emotional. "I didn't serve next to men like Staff Sergeant Johnson so he could be humiliated at home. This is not the country we fought for." Clips poured in, men and women, all backgrounds standing in solidarity. Some were recorded in uniforms they hadn't worn in years. Some had medals pinned to their shirts. All of them said the same thing. He was not the threat. The system is. Even celebrities began sharing the story. Civil rights leaders reposted Lena's video. The mayor of Atlanta issued a statement by noon. "We are reviewing the incident and expect full transparency from airport security and law enforcement." By evening, the pressure was impossible to ignore. A televised anchor on Channel 6 leaned in and said, "This is no longer about just one soldier. This is about the uniform and who gets the privilege of being believed in it." At his kitchen table, Malik scrolled through it all. He didn't smile. Not yet. The support was overwhelming, but so was the weight of it. It wasn't just his name out there anymore. It was his face, his story, and now somehow his responsibility. Then came the email. Short, direct. Subject: "Let me help you speak in the right room. From Camille Bryant, civil rights attorney." He tapped to open it. "Staff Sergeant Johnson. You don't know me yet, but I know your case. Atlanta has just confirmed a public hearing before the city board. I've worked on cases like this for over a decade. You deserve representation that's not afraid to speak truth to power. Let me stand beside you." Camille Malik set the phone down slowly. He breathed in, long, deep. His mother walked in just then, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She saw the screen. More messages. "Yeah," he said, his voice low. "Camille Bryant wants to represent me." Angela raised an eyebrow. "The Camille Bryant?" Malik nodded. Angela sat down beside him. "What are you thinking?" He stared out the window. "I'm not trying to start a war. I'm just tired of fighting one." Angela reached for his hand. "So don't fight them, baby. Just speak. Tell the truth. Loud enough so even the ones who look away can't ignore it anymore." Malik looked down at his fingers. The skin around his wrists was healing, but he remembered the pressure, the clicking of the cuffs, the stares. "I'm not fighting them," he said softly at first, then louder. "I'm defending the truth." Angela smiled. "Then it's time they hear it." That night, as the city settled into sleep, headlines continued flashing across screens. Atlanta soldiers arrest, sparks nationwide outcry, public hearing scheduled in military misidentification case. And beneath it all, one quiet, unwavering voice was finally beginning to rise above the noise. The sun over Atlanta was unusually warm that day, as if the sky itself were paying attention. Outside the Civic Hall, a long line had already wrapped around the building. Veterans in uniform, families holding small flags, college students holding hand-painted signs. He wore it right. Inside, every seat was filled. Even the standing area along the back walls was shoulder to shoulder. Front row, an elderly black veteran sat quietly in a pressed marine dress coat, his cane resting against his leg. He leaned to the young man beside him and said, "I never thought I'd live to see justice walk in like this." At the front of the room stood a polished wooden podium and a raised council bench. The official hearing on the unlawful detainment of Staff Sergeant Malik Johnson was about to begin. This wasn't a courtroom. It was a public reckoning. When Malik walked in, the room didn't erupt in applause. It went still, not in silence but reverence. Dressed once again in his formal uniform, his stripes gleaming beneath the lights, he paused just a second longer before taking his seat beside civil rights attorney Camille Bryant. A camera zoomed in on his face. Lena Carter's live stream was already peaking at 1.2 million viewers. The chat was flying, "He's standing for all of us. This is what dignity looks like." The chairwoman called the session to order. This body is convened to examine the conduct of Officers Cole and Hawkins at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport and the detainment of Staff Sergeant Malik Johnson. Camille stood first, voice steady, but cutting clear through the air. They didn't doubt a uniform. They denied a man. They didn't ask questions. They made a decision, one rooted not in threat, but in skin. She turned to Malik. "We'd now like to give voice to the soldier they tried to silence." Malik rose, a brief breath in. No notes, just his voice. "I've worn this uniform in Syria, in Afghanistan, in towns where people couldn't pronounce my name but still respected the patch on my shoulder. But last week I wore it in Atlanta and suddenly it didn't mean a thing." A quiet ripple moved through the audience. Phones raised, cameras locked. They didn't ask for ID. They didn't ask for a story. They saw a black man in a uniform and decided I had to be pretending. Let me be clear, I didn't come here for revenge. I came here because next time it might not be me. It might be someone younger, or someone without a phone, or without a commander who answers a call. And they won't walk out. He paused, his voice lower now. "The uniform I wear doesn't need defending, but our idea of justice clearly does." A woman in the back sniffled. A man standing near the aisle whispered, "God bless him." Officers Cole and Hawkins were next, but their words were flat. Legal phrases, procedure talk. "We acted within our training. We received a report." Camille stood once more. "No procedure instructs you to humiliate. No training manual teaches contempt." The council deliberated briefly, but the weight of the room had already decided. Officers Cole and Hawkins, the chairwoman, said, "You are hereby dismissed from your duties. This panel recommends your conduct be referred to the Department of Justice for civil rights investigation." Gasps. Some cheers. But mostly, relief. Malik didn't smile. He didn't need to. Justice for once had spoken louder than rage. As he walked out of the chamber, people rose. Not clapping, standing, quietly, respectfully. Lena, holding up her phone, whispered to her audience, "We didn't just get justice today. We watched it. Walk in dressed in uniform." Outside, that same veteran from earlier stood waiting. Malik spotted him and offered a nod. "I fought in Nam," the old man said, extending a hand. "Didn't think much had changed. But today, you changed something, son." Back in Camille's car, riding through the soft dusk of downtown Atlanta, Malik finally leaned back. He looked out the window. A small group of teens walked by wearing t-shirts with his face and the words, "He wore it right." Camille smiled. "What are you thinking?" Malik took a breath. "That may be. I'm not just wearing this uniform for me anymore." It started with a single photo. Malik, standing beneath the American flag at West Point, his eyes steady, uniform, pressed hands clasped behind his back. No caption, just the image. But that was enough. By nightfall, the photo was everywhere, from magazine covers to high school hallways. It didn't scream, it didn't demand. It simply stood, and in doing so, reminded people what integrity could look like in a world that often forgets. A week after the hearing, Malik stood before a room full of cadets at West Point, most barely older than he had been when he enlisted. He cleared his throat. They told me once that a uniform earns you respect. He paused, letting the weight settle. But some folks don't salute what they see. They salute what they believe. So if they don't believe you belong in this cloth, you better believe in yourself even harder. He scanned the room. No one looked away. Wear the uniform with truth, even if no one salutes you. A single clap echoed from the back. Then more followed. Not wild applause, just steady, respectful rhythm, like soldiers recognizing another soldier not for the battles he fought overseas, but for the one he brought home. That night on national TV, Malik's mother, Angela Johnson, was interviewed on a public affairs special. She sat upright in a navy blue dress, hands folded in her lap. Her voice never wavered. "He didn't fight because he was angry," she said softly. "He fought because he believed his dignity mattered. That's a battle too, and not everyone survives it." The anchor blinked back tears. Across America, living rooms fell quiet. This wasn't a political issue. It wasn't about sides anymore. It was about humanity. Meanwhile, Lena Carter, whose live stream had ignited the country, stood on the TED stage, a crimson backdrop behind her and 1,000 eyes in front. She smiled, modest but firm. "I didn't plan to be part of anything big. I just pressed record." But in that moment, I realized something. Truth has a sound, and sometimes it needs a phone and a little courage to be heard. Her talk, titled Truth, Phone, and Courage, in that order, trended within hours. School districts began using her story in digital literacy programs. Parents wrote letters. Teachers asked her to speak. But Lena always said the same thing. "Don't thank me. I just happened to be standing in the right spot when the truth showed up." And then there was Mr. LeVar Davis, the Vietnam vet, who had stepped forward that day at the airport, who had refused to stay silent when silence would have been safer. At a city ceremony downtown, he was presented with the Brave Citizen Award. He wore the same jacket, same cane, but his eyes held something lighter, something freer. "I saw a soldier being judged by his skin, not his service," he told the audience, "and I remembered all the times no one spoke up for us." That day I chose not to repeat that mistake. Afterward, kids lined up to shake his hand. He chuckled, wiping his glasses, saying, "Guess I still got a little fight left." One of those kids would later write a letter. Just a quiet, handwritten note, mailed to Lena's school. The return address said 8th grade, Ms. Carter's civics class. "Dear Ms. Carter," it read, "I saw your video. It made me cry. I want to help people now. I want to be someone who stops bad things before they get worse. Thank you for showing me how. Tyler J." Age 13. Lena kept it in her drawer. Not to show off, just to remind herself every time she felt small why one moment of truth could change the path of someone else's whole life. As for Malik, he never sought the spotlight again, but it followed him anyway. He gave interviews when asked, spoke at schools when invited. But mostly he went back to work quietly, faithfully, still wearing the uniform that almost got taken from him. And every time he passed through an airport, someone stopped him. "Are you that soldier from the hearing? Thank you for standing up. You helped my son believe he belongs." Malik would smile, nod politely. But once when a little girl ran up and hugged his leg and whispered, "You're a hero," he knelt down and said, "A real hero is someone who tells the truth even when no one's ready to hear it. We choose symbols, flags, uniforms, titles, but sometimes it's not what we wear that defines us. It's what we refuse to take off: our courage, our dignity, our voice." And Malik Johnson wore all three: the same terminal, the same wide corridor, the same flag fluttering near Gate 12, but this time, the air felt different. Malik Johnson walked through Atlanta Airport in full uniform just as he had weeks earlier. Same posture, same stride, same staff sergeant insignia stitched neatly over his heart. But something had shifted. People still looked, but not with suspicion, not with side eyes or cautious steps backward. They looked with recognition, with quiet respect. No one pulled their child away. An older woman sitting near a terminal entrance gave him a small nod, hands folded in prayer. A young couple whispered, then smiled at him. He caught none of their words, but he didn't need to. This time he didn't feel like he had to explain who he was. His presence did that for him. Then, just as he passed the escalators, a small voice rang out behind him. "Hey, mister, you a real soldier?" Malik turned. A young white boy, maybe 7, maybe 8, stood holding a toy airplane, eyes wide, face full of curiosity. His mother started to step forward, nervous, but Malik just knelt down and smiled. "Yeah," he said gently. "I am." The boy tilted his head. "Can I be one too?" Malik looked at him, really looked, at the untarnished hope, the innocence that hadn't yet learned what uniforms sometimes couldn't protect you from. "You want to be one someday?" The boy nodded fiercely. Malik reached up, gently tapped the boy's shoulder and said, "Then start by standing up for people, even the ones who don't look like you." The boy didn't fully understand, but he nodded again. And in that moment, Malik wasn't thinking about airports or hearings or viral videos. He was thinking about the future, and who gets to shape it. A few paces ahead, someone lifted a phone, not to live stream, not to provoke, just to capture the image of a man in uniform standing tall, walking forward. The photo would later appear in a small community magazine beneath the caption, "He walks with more than rank. He walks with truth." As Malik reached the checkpoint, a TSA officer, black, mid-40s salt and pepper goatee, looked up startled for a split second. Then he smiled. "Staff Sergeant Johnson," he said quietly. "You good today?" Malik gave a short nod. "Yeah, I'm good." The officer leaned in and added, "Some of us. We followed the whole thing. You gave a lot of people something to believe in again." Malik paused. "I wasn't trying to inspire anyone. I just didn't want to disappear." "Exactly," the officer said. "And that's what made it matter." He boarded his flight, took the window seat, and leaned his head back. Outside, the sky was clear. No clouds, no rain, just endless blue. He closed his eyes, and in the quiet, the words of his father came back to him through that old letter his mother had kept, through the years of silence and inherited resilience. "Don't take the uniform off, son. Make them see it." The flight took off. But the real lift came from something else, from the knowledge that this time no one had tried to take his dignity. No one had called him a fake. No one had reached for cuffs. They saw the uniform, but more importantly, they saw the man. As the screen fades to black, Malik's voice returns one last time. Steady, quiet, unshaken. "They tried to silence my dignity, but I wore it too loud to ignore. If this story moved you, you're not alone." What happened to Staff Sergeant Malik wasn't just about a uniform. It was about dignity, truth, and the quiet strength it takes to stand tall even when the world tries to shrink you. At Mr. Mac's Stories, we believe stories like this matter, because sometimes a uniform doesn't speak loud enough, but a story can. If you felt something today, if this story made you reflect, inspired you, or simply reminded you of what justice should look like, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and most importantly, subscribe to Mr. Mac's Stories for more powerful stories that shine a light where others might turn away. Your support helps us keep going. Every like, every share, every kind comment, it tells us we're not just shouting into the void. You are our fuel. Remember, at Mr. Mac's Stories, we don't just tell stories, we remember them, so the world never forgets. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.